Welcome to the Mojo Mundi podcast, where it's all about magic, manifesting, and movement. I'm Ginny Watts, the Dancing Witch, and in this episode we examine faith in the face of FUBAR. Last night I watched a 2020 Marc Maron comedy special on Netflix. Maron is a comic, actor, and podcaster with a painfully funny, sarcastic, and brutally accurate take on the social psychology of the United States. The 2020 special is called End Times Fun. Early in his act, Maron takes on the perplexing state of the nation as we approached the 2020 election and the concerning possibility that if Trump lost his bid for re-election, he might literally refuse to vacate the Oval Office. Maron enacts a theoretical conversation between two disconcerted U.S. citizens discussing how to respond if such an outrageous and dangerous refusal were to happen. Well, what do we do? I don't know. Do we even go to yoga anymore? Oh, we have to go to yoga. Like now more than ever, we have to go because that energy is important out in the world. The audience laughed and applauded. I laughed. And I looked at this exchange from the outside perspective as well as from inside my own beliefs. I have to say there's more to the joke, but I won't drop the punchline. You'll have to check out the special for that. More pertinent to our exploration is the perceptions that are reflected in this simple, poignant scenario. Here, in a few simple exchanges, Maron shines a spotlight on the weaknesses, the inaccuracies, and the misunderstandings that surround the idea of taking a spiritual approach to a real-world issue. From Maron's perspective, the go-to-yoga response is a cop-out, tantamount to burying our heads in the sand. He's not alone in his perceptions, and he's not wrong. Choosing to muddle along, doing what is easy, avoiding our fear and helplessness, is a very common and understandable response to world crises that defy the efforts of the individual. We recognize that if we want to change the state of the world, we have to do something, while simultaneously recognizing that the monumental nature of the problems requires a concert of effort from many people, a united response to match the power of the corporate oligarchy. Yet how will that be accomplished? How can little old me unite the masses to carve out a better way of life for us all? I am failing before I've even started. The weakness of this sort of spiritual response in the face of despair is not that the spiritual stuff doesn't work. It is inaccurate to define faith as self-delusion. Rather, the weakness is in what we are really experiencing when we keep going to church or yoga or the circle or the mosque. We go through the motions and focus on the rituals to shut out our fear and anguish. We ignore the fact that we are losing faith. Inside our heads, our doubts and dread whisper without cessation, and we are desperate to escape. For those of us who invest in the law of attraction, we recognize that focus on the negative isn't helpful. Giving energy to feelings that are not what we want by focusing on doubt, fear, and hopelessness only increases those sensations. We deny or try to shut out our feelings of dread and despair. Whether we avoid the pain or we avoid the negativity, we are avoiding. Avoiding the sensations of doubt and fear is not the same as having faith. Faith is an abiding confidence in something without proof, and often in the face of apparently contradicting evidence. Denying is something different. When we tell ourselves we shouldn't feel an emotion even as we are feeling it, we cannot shift that emotion. Emotions are communications, and they will only intensify the message if we don't listen. So let us agree that avoidance is not a helpful response, nor is it an act of faith, nor of positive belief. In that case, to quote Maron's hypothetical citizen, what do we do? Let's start with reasoning in the face of overwhelm. From there, we can expand into powerful spiritual responses that may take some practice, some self-awareness, some wisdom. We are in a time of great upheaval and strife. While I think it is evident that I have very liberal political and social views, what I am about to say applies regardless of your personal political, religious, or social beliefs, values, or leanings. You may view the current state of the U.S. as moving from a democratic political system to a fascist regime. You may hold the view that safeguarding your religious and spiritual values and your traditional way of life requires supporting the current president in implementing radical social, political, and economic change to ensure that you and your children and their children can thrive. Either way, you are here because you want to respond from your spiritual path to positively impact the ever-mounting social, financial, environmental, and spiritual crises we are facing. You are here because you believe in or are open to the idea of co-creating with deity. We have already discussed the problems with labeling avoidance as positivity or spiritual practice. Let's discuss the opposing alternative, which is to talk a lot about our despair, the problems, all that we don't want, and who's really to blame. Ironically, focusing on what is wrong with the situation grows from the same roots as avoidance and has much the same outcome. Perseverating on problems is a response to helplessness and fear. Rather than avoiding, we perseverate out of a belief that if we just turn a problem over and over enough, we will discover how to control it. If we talk about our despair enough, we will stop it. If we keep focusing on what is not in our control, we will somehow think it into submission. If we replay the scenarios we don't want, we will be able to keep anything bad from ever happening. If we can place blame somewhere, we will be relieved of our feelings of guilt, shame, and helplessness. In all our activity, be it avoiding or be it perseverating, we have forgotten the art of allowing. We fail to allow that there are things we have control over and many more things we do not control. We miss the opportunity to allow our emotional guidance system to actually guide us. We don't allow for contrast. We don't allow our sacred fool to shine. Whether we are trying to avoid distress or focus on fixing it, we end up feeling worse, encountering more distress and more unwanted experiences, becoming less able to act, and feeling more disconnected from deity. Have we found that reading all the news feeds on our phones has really decreased our sense of distress? Have all the Instagram and Facebook and YouTube suggestions we've scrolled through and watched and followed left us feeling more empowered, better equipped to take actions that enrich our world? Does directing our anger towards some portion of humanity leave us feeling closer to the divine? We label worry as logic, our perseveration as reasoning, our avoidance of the negative as being positive. Habits of blame, controlling, perseverating, avoiding, and so on are deeply ingrained in the human psyche. And we can shift these habits through a multitude of means. Our path to changing these hindering habits lies in coming home to ourselves, to our divine nature, to our unceasing connection with deity. When we feel fear or hopelessness or helplessness, our first urge is to look outside ourselves. We want to ask who or what out there is causing this feeling in here. Instead, let us practice allowing. Let us allow that our emotions are our own. We may be reacting to something external, but our reaction is ours. This is a huge hurdle to leap, so let me remind you of how we know this is true. I am angry with my child's behavior, and I am in the middle of scolding him. The phone rings. I answer with the sweetest hello, reaching into my friendly nature. Nothing has changed about my child's behavior, but I have chosen a different focus. Because I am focusing on something else, I am having different emotions. Given the same scenario with exactly the same behavior in my child, I may recognize that he's hungry because I'm late fixing lunch. I can see that his hunger has contributed to his poor choice. Instead of feeling angry, I grab him a snack, and as I'm making his sandwich, we talk about what each of us could have done better. Same behavior from the same kid, yet I have a number of different emotions depending on my focus, my thoughts, my intentions, my self-awareness. One way we come back to ourselves is to forego solving the problem and banishing the emotion. Instead, choosing to be present with the emotion, to allow our pain, our fear, and to be present to it. One of the most effective ways to do this is to allow our bodies to share their wisdom. In other words, to feel the sensations of the emotion in our bodies. Where do I feel fear? What is my heart doing when I feel overwhelmed? As we recognize a sensation, we can gently label that sensation and then breathe. Oh, my heart feels like it's being squeezed. Followed by a slow belly breath. I feel my shoulders caving in under the weight of it all. Another slow belly breath. Then we may allow compassion for ourselves. We can allow that, given everything that is happening, it's understandable that we feel the way we do. We may find that past experiences of fear or helplessness arise in our memories, and we can allow that our past experiences are clearly affecting our current responses, and we can continue to breathe. When we are clear on our feelings and our thoughts and our sensations, we can begin to step back and look at the bigger picture. What is true about the situation, and what are old thought habits and explanations that we recognize are not accurate? Let go of the habit and stick with what you know to be true. This is also difficult. Everybody thinks I'm incompetent. May feel true, but unless we have canvassed everybody and all have confirmed their belief that we are incompetent, we don't get to tell ourselves that is a true statement. It gets even trickier when we are facing a situation that is more nebulous. If we look at the state of the environment, for instance, we may say, global climate change is here to stay, and it will result in complete destruction of the world as we know it, and there's nothing in the universe that can stop it. It's possible we have gone too far, that our impact on Earth will destroy the world as we know it, and that the destruction is irreversible. But we actually don't know for sure what the outcome will be or when it will come to pass. If we can't confirm the truth of our assertion, particularly if that assertion is paralyzing us, better to let it go. But we don't have to take the positivity road either. We can simply allow that things don't look good. Once we remove the absolute that the world is coming to an end, we have opened the door to possibility. Let's take another example. If we look at the issue of gun control, we might say, taking away guns from those of us who are law-abiding citizens means that only criminals will have guns. We will all lose our rights to own guns. We won't be able to hunt. We will be unable to defend ourselves, and criminals will take over everything, resulting in mass killings, violent crime everywhere, and anarchy. While gun control may take the form of a complete prohibition on private citizens owning any firearms, as is the case in Cambodia, that has not happened thus far in the U.S. In fact, even the most restrictive gun control measures in the U.S. have fallen far short of a complete prohibition of private gun ownership. Furthermore, loosening of gun restrictions at the state level has not led to any reduction in crime, violence, or anarchy, but is actually correlated with an increase in violent crime. Since we cannot know what the future holds, and since our assumptions that fewer restrictions on guns will make us safer is actually not true, we can simply allow that we feel unsafe in a rapidly changing world. We can release the added fear that our way of life is in imminent danger of being destroyed. We can allow that having a gun in the home does not actually prevent endangerment. Here, we are letting go of control. Bad things happen to good people. Bad things happen to people who have guns. There are good people who have guns, and there are bad people who have guns. We can acknowledge that there is much we do not have control over, and we can then turn our attention to what we do have control over, our own emotions, thoughts, and actions. When we face the overwhelming chaos of multiple world crises, our internal fortitude is in danger of being taxed well beyond its limits. When every problem is so big, it may seem foolish to ignore the whole in favor of a smaller piece, but that is actually the only way to make any headway. I'm not suggesting we never look at the overview. Rather, I'm inviting focusing primarily on what we actually can impact and change. It's like following a map. If we don't look at the whole map to see how to get from where we are to where we want to be, it's difficult to set a course. Once we have the overview, we then need to be watching our progress, attending to the street signs, the flow of the traffic, the intersections, and stoplights. For those of us who grieve the destruction of the environment, it is helpful to consider that doing something is better than doing nothing, and to support others in doing the same. The only way we can guarantee that nothing will change is to give up. For those of us who worry about the eroding of gun rights, it is helpful to understand what will make us safer and what won't, to understand what the specific limitations are. In both cases, we have the option to choose fear or to choose love. When we choose love over fear, we are allowing ourselves to hear things that may be difficult, allowing that we cannot make others agree with our views, and allowing a trust in Goddess, Allah, God, and the bigger order that we do not know or understand. These examples primarily focus on our thoughts, but we can actually do a lot more. This is where co-creation comes into the picture. Ultimately, we recognize that there is something bigger than ourselves. We and the rest of creation are a part of that something bigger. We know that when our physical existence ends, we return to the greater wholeness, to Creator. We also understand that we are here to co-create, so let's apply our co-creative resources to the chaos. Once we can let go of the absolutes of a dead earth and death by anarchy, we can consider that we have possibilities. We can ask ourselves, how do I manifest the small things and apply the same approach to the huge things? We recognize that experiencing what we don't want helps us to recognize what we do want. I want a planet that is healthy, filled with all the creatures that God placed here, where we cherish and care for creation. I want a planet where my family and I are safe, where we can enjoy our traditional practices, and where there is order based on basic values of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now we have an overview of where we want to end up. The next step in manifesting is to allow the co-creative process to unfold. Allowing means recognizing it is not our job to make the change happen, or even to know exactly how our manifestation will look. When we embrace not knowing, we ignite magic. I am eager to live in a clean, healthy, and bountiful environment. I have no idea how we will get there, and I have faith that deity does. I want to live in a safe place where I can enjoy my family and we can thrive. I have no idea how that will actually look, and I have faith that God does. There is the overview. Inspired unfolding is the process of watching for signposts and checking in with what our emotions and physical sensations are telling us about the choices before us. It feels good to recycle, to clean up the trails I hike, to drive my Prius, to be a member of the Sierra Club. I enjoy taking my kids to hunter safety classes. I feel better knowing if I had to protect my family, I have the skills to do that. I like taking my daughter out in the fall and seeing her confidence in handling her rifle, in dressing the meat and providing for our family. Choose what feels joyful. Not pleasurable, not powerful, what feels joyful. As we focus on the joyful feelings and on our honest and real faith, we begin to replenish our internal resources and to attract more genuine positive emotions, more positive experiences, more positive people. Notice I didn't say more people like us. In fact, we may find that we meet people who think differently from ourselves, but allowing begins to reveal more positive interactions with others, regardless of their beliefs. We may find that we can actually find some bridges between our differing philosophies. If we lived in our own little worlds, it would be much easier to keep our focus on our own path. But we don't. We are constantly crossing paths with many others who see things differently. We are bombarded with information presented in a way that encourages, even demands, taking sides against. We face the other that judges us, and in response, we feel the urge to defend and judge in turn. Here is the next great challenge. When we hear opposition to the world we long for, it is easy to boomerang right back to fear. This is contrast. This is our opportunity to choose love. This is a time to step into our sacred fool. We don't have to answer or destroy the judge. There are a multitude of responses that keep us in love. We can allow the other to have their opinions. It is a wise person who can listen without feeling compelled to respond. We can recognize the fear that drives the other, and we can respond with compassion. We can focus on those around us who are also coming from a place of love, even in disagreement, and we can feel gratitude for them. We can look for and recognize commonalities with other people, even those with whom we disagree. Research shows that bringing people with opposing views together where the intention is listening and understanding, natural consequences of coming from a place of allowing, leads to reductions in fear and conflict and to increases in successful solutions and improved follow-through. Here is spiritual practice having solid, positive, impactful outcomes. As we focus on what harmonizes with our spiritual path, we begin to see more and more the world we are longing to create. We embrace the diversity as a gift and know that we are always ultimately safe in the hands of deity. The coincidentia oppositorum is that as we allow for the existence of what we don't want, we empower the creation of what we do want. That is magic. I guess my response to the querulous citizen is, if yoga connects you with the truth that you are here to co-create, if it helps you to feel genuinely positive, if yoga enlivens your sense of your own divine nature and the divine nature of every single thing in existence, if yoga refills your reservoir of love and helps you to practice the art of allowing, I would say, oh, we have to go to yoga. Like now more than ever we have to go, because that energy is important out in the world. As you shift from fear into love, from focus on the other to focus on your co-creation with deity, and you step into your sacred fool self, you may find places where you get stuck. I would be honored to facilitate your pathfinding through the places of resistance. Connect with me via my website or email or on Facebook at Caravan of Dreams MT. Our music is used by permission of the artist, Sean Phoenix. Thank you, Sean. And thank you to Bozeman Public Library for the Workbench Sound Studio located in beautiful downtown Bozeman, Montana. If you would like to learn more about allowing and how to find your unique style of manifesting, please visit my website, caravanofdreamsmt.com, or email me at dancingwitchmt@gmail.com. This is Ginny Watts, the Dancing Witch. Till next time, blessed be.